What's going on, guys? Brawless here, and I wanted to talk about some news that just dropped about Bioshock 4. I'm a huge Bioshock fan, always have. I've replayed them all multiple times, and I consider myself to be an avid lover of the series. Now, the latest news for Bioshock 4 was confirmed by IGN, GameSpot, pretty much every outlet, that Cloud Chamber, who is making Bioshock 4, is hiring for a senior writer who can, quote, weave impactful, character-driven stories in an open-world setting. Now, this is pretty huge news, seeing that Bioshock has always been more of a linear game with some open-world elements as far as side quests, specifically speaking Bioshock Infinite. But for the most part, they've been linear, story-driven narratives. So how do I feel about this? Not too excited, honestly. I think in the world of oversaturated open-world games, I think the last thing that we need is our heavy narrative-driven Bioshock series to go the open-world route. Now, if they do it correctly and they don't make it a grind or just take the focus off the narrative, I think it could be something magical. But I don't think that something like Bioshock that's so heavy with the political tones and the narrative needs to necessarily be open world in order to be a good time. I mean, think of it like this, compared to the Metro series. So Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light were just like Bioshock. They're linear driven games. You go from point A to point B and then roll credits. The games are over, and they're excellent that way, right? Now enter Metro Exodus. Metro Exodus was a good game, right? But most would argue, and I would argue this because I've played all three multiple times, that it just wasn't as good. It just wasn't. I missed the heavy narratives, and like the game did have its linear segments, but it mainly opened up into 3 or 4 major open world locations where you were just kind of free to explore. And I'm all about exploration in games, but there's some times where I just want to sit down and I want to get immersed in a game, and I want to get invested in the characters and invested in the things that are going on. And to argue my own point, Metro Exodus did that very well, but I felt like the first 2 games really set the tone and set the narrative so well that the third one was able to coast off that. Now I'm hoping that the same thing will happen with Bioshock 4 if they decide to go the open world route, and this is for Bioshock 4, which would just make this entire video meaningless if it wasn't. But an open world isn't what Bioshock needs. The problem with open world games nowadays is that people try to emulate the classics like Grand Theft Auto, even Saints Row, and some games like that, which are built specifically at their core as open world games. And then you have games like Bioshock or Metro nowadays that take these linear experiences and they try to stretch them out, and then they pad them with a bunch of bullshit. Look at the Assassin's Creed series and how watered down and how just empty and soulless they've become. I mean, they're still good games at their heart, but they're just not, they don't compare to the first Assassin's Creed with Ezio and the second Assassin's Creed. They just don't, because they're too focused on keeping the player busy and keeping the player coming back for years, months, whatever it is at a time, and giving them too much to do. And I like my games to have a beginning and an end. And I kind of don't like where this whole industry is going in terms of making everything a live service, making everything, like a Skyrim knockoff where you have to have 50,000 side quests to do and side activities. I'm one of those people that when a new game comes out, I want to play that new game. I don't want to be stuck in one game indefinitely. And at the end of the day, there's just some games that don't need the open world treatment. I don't want Rapture or wherever we decide to visit for this Bioshock 4 to be littered with just padding and repetitive fetch quests and go here and activate this switch quest and go here and kill this quest. A couple of them here or there are fine, but don't base your entire narrative around that in order to progress. I mean, look at Assassin's Creed Valhalla as the perfect example of that. And even the one before that, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. In those games, you hit such a huge progression wall, a frustrating progression wall, that I literally quit both games and didn't come back. I actually didn't officially beat Odyssey for, I think, 2 years after its release. And then I finally beat Valhalla after a few months after its release, because I took a month break off because I hit this massive progression wall, which caused me to have to go through the open world and do all the repetitive quests. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to see the credits roll, and I wanted there to be an end. So with this news, I'm really hoping that if they do go the open route world, that they do it correctly, they respect the IP, they respect the series, and they do it tastefully. What I don't want them to do is create live service elements, multiplayer, and all this other shit that we don't need. But anyways, guys, I'm curious to know what you guys think. of this news, so leave your opinions and thoughts in the comments below. Guys, please check out our Facebook group, join up, and you can interact with myself and Seventh Sword directly. We got memes, tips, all sorts of stuff. So other than that, that's all we got. We'll see you guys in the next Talk Gaming.